Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, I'm excited to be back with you. I got over my nasty little sickness there, and we're back here on a Monday with you.
People don't know this, but I'm wearing double everything. Two pants on, two shirts because it's going to get colder. I hate cold weather. I hate it with a passion. Just the idea of driving home, and it's only 4 miles, takes about 10 minutes. I don't want to freeze.
You hate it. You were just
hibernate
telling me,
in the winter.
You do, and I know you do, and it's hilarious. I'm looking at him wearing the layers right now. I don't know if you guys can see that from how far the shot is away.
Long sleeve shirt on, another sweater, this thing, two pairs of pants on, two pairs of socks.
I don't know how you don't get hot under all these lights.
I'm fine.
Okay, he's fine, and he's ready to answer your question, so let's get right into it. Our first question is from everybody's favorite question asker, Mousetown. Were you surprised by the size of the crowd against Louisiana Tech? You said on the Pig Trail pregame show that you thought it might be 45,000. On TV, it looked like there was more than that, Mike.
I don't think I ever predicted the size. What I was trying to contrast was the difference between what kind of crowd you might have to make a difference in the game and what kind of size would make a difference winning or losing. So I said, if there's only 45,000 here and this team gets in trouble, they might lose. Look, what has everybody talked about for 2 years, the last 2 years? Why does this team not play better at home? Well, and we addressed that last week. They play better when it's full, usually at night.
Yeah.
And so that's the size of the crowd matters. So if there was 45,000 in this game and Louisiana Tech, you underestimated them and you got into a close game, I felt like, ooh, we might lose this game. What did I do? I predicted it would be a 7-point game, and it wasn't, but it was, you guys all, no, you didn't, but a lot of people on our Pig Trail thing predicted a blowout. So, I mean, that's basically what I was talking about. Okay, what really happened? It was kind of in between. It was about 55,000. So better crowd than maybe it could have been.
Yeah.
Not terrible, but the crowd didn't win this game for them. You know what won it? Starting with defense, they kept Louisiana Tech off the scoreboard while Arkansas's offense got untracked. Because fans don't understand this because a lot of them paid zero attention to the opponent. But Louisiana Tech had a really good defense. Teams had not gone around blowing them. They typically were giving up 12, 13, 14 points, 7. They had 3 overtime losses, one of them a double overtime. I think the worst loss they'd had was 10 points all year.
I think so, yeah.
You know, so right. I knew their defense was good. Well, Arkansas held their offense while Arkansas was trying to figure out Louisiana Tech's defense. And part of the problem there, and we talked about it, Patrick Kudus was missing from that game because he could not redshirt if he played in 5 games, and this would have been his 4th, so now he can play against Missouri. And I think that caused a disruption early on. But look what happened after that. Look what happened after that. Everybody was all over Taylor Green, but from that point on, he threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for 2 touchdowns. He ended up with a QBR rating of 88.5.
Something like that, yeah.
So they all played well in the end. And you may not be impressed that they won this game, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe you think they should have scored 60 points. No one's come close to doing that against Louisiana Tech. But I thought they played well. And I think they did it in spite of the fact that there weren't 65,000 people there, that it was only 55, and a bunch of those people left at halftime, so the atmosphere at the end was pretty dead.
Yeah, it was.
And they still played well all the way through the end of the game. And I will add one more thing. That game should have been a shutout. The refs, with 2 of the worst calls I've ever seen, kept 2 drives going that would have stopped.
Yeah.
One of them was a roughing the passer call that turned an interception run back out to the 50 into, oh, well, now they're inside the red zone. That was their first touchdown, and the call should have never been made. The other was a pass interference that wasn't pass interference for 2 reasons. Number 1, there was no interference, and number 2, it was not a catchable ball.
Right.
And that put them, you know, over the 50-yard line and got them going. So the 14 points that the defense gave up, they didn't really give it up. the announcers drove me nuts because they started talking, well, they're generating some offense now. Sure, when you get helped by the referees.
Absolutely, you're getting some help there. I mean, you looked at what happened in the beginning of that game in that first half. It even looked like when things were going Louisiana Tech's way, they were still stopped. They were still stopped. So that to me, I mean, we can go into a little bit more in depth. You mentioned Taylon Green. We're going to talk about a little bit more about him, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that game in general. But I was actually very surprised at how, I was like you. I didn't know how many fans would show up. I didn't know. And there was a lot of fans there for that game. I mean, that was really good.
That surprised you. I thought that's about what it would be. I didn't think it would be 45,000, but I didn't think it would be 65 either. I just kind of hoped it would be.
Yeah, no, I know. But I just, for that game, for where Arkansas was in the season, for what had happened, sure. I really think that was a pretty good turnout, I would say. Patty Nelson says, gotta love Arkansas fans, win a game, and they still want to come on social media and whine. Gosh, can you, for once, just encourage these young men?
Okay, Patty, I would tell you what friends of mine always tell me, and I got one in particular that tells me this all the time. He says, Erwin, you pay too much attention to the people on X.
Because Twitter, Mike, don't call it X.
Well, it's X. It's X.
I know, but all the cool kids still call it Twitter.
Yeah, it's X. So he said, you pay too much attention, and he said, think about this. First of all, ask yourself on any issue when you start reading a thread, are there more people mad about something or kind of neutral or not mad? I said, no, the mad people are still less than half. Okay, so you don't even have a majority there. He said, think about all the people that are read X but don't post on it.
That's true.
That adds some more people. And he said, I know plenty of people that read it all the time, but they don't post. Why? Because they're not motivated, they're not mad. And so now you throw those people into the mix, and then he says, think about the biggest group of all. People that aren't even on there.
Yeah.
Because you may find it hard to believe, but more than half the fans don't even do that. Mm-hmm. So now you put this thing into perspective, and I defend the right of these people to say whatever they want.
Sure.
This is America. You got an outlet, use it. But it's like, if you stand over in a corner and start screaming at something and somebody else is over there going, hey, Erwin, pay attention to me. No, I'm going to pay attention to the people that are yelling.
Yeah.
And it colors my thinking. That's one of the reasons why I thought maybe there would only be 45,000 there. I didn't know, because maybe people are just totally burned out by this thing. They don't care if they go to a bowl game. Doesn't matter. This stinks. Got to get rid of the coach. You listen to this stuff enough, and maybe you start thinking there are more people that feel that way than really do.
There were people, and I talked about this on the radio show after the game, there were people, and this just baffles me, that actually were rooting for Louisiana Tech to win that game because they said if they lose that game to Louisiana Tech, Pittman is probably gone, and so we're going to root for the other team.
What percentage of fans are like that?
Well, and the funny thing was I saw more than I thought I would. And so to me, I think sometimes, and my dad always says this, sometimes the loudest group of people are the ones who are spreading some negativity.
And they do influence you, absolutely.
And they do influence you, because then I was thinking, wow, the fan base really, this is really crazy. And then I go on X or Twitter after the game, and I actually noticed there was quite a lot of people that were spreading positivity and were excited that this team is bowl eligible. And even if you go on Facebook too, there's some negativity, but you have the positive people who are like jumping on those people. So it's all what you see.
Well, and the point is, don't let it get to you.
Exactly. Hog Redneck asks, do we have a shot against Missouri? I like the way our defense has bounced back from that Ole Miss game, but the offense is really hit and miss right now.
Yeah, is the offense really hit and miss? They were hit and miss in the first quarter.
True.
Now, we've explained why. Part of why that may have happened was because Kudus wasn't out there, and you get this disruption. He'd been back for a couple of games. He'd been playing well. Then they went back to the old situation. I have to acknowledge also Taylon Green is a guy that sometimes takes a while to get going. But when he got going, it was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't argue with 35 points scored through 3 quarters, and he scores 4 touchdowns. But, this is just the way this thing works. You look at this stuff, and you start seeing people criticize and saying that's not a big win. And then you start thinking, well, okay, that wasn't a big win there, so this is going to affect us against Missouri. Now, Sam Pittman had a lot of things to say about Missouri in his press conference on Monday. First of all, and this is something that fans don't talk about enough, he said, we do consider this a rival. I've said before, I don't think the average Razorback fan considers Missouri a big rival. I think they're much more interested in beating, now that Texas is in there, to beating Texas. I think when they play Oklahoma starting in 2 years, not next season, but the year after that, I think that Oklahoma will be a big rival. I think Ole Miss has always been a rival. LSU has been a rival. I don't see Missouri as always being that kind of rival. But for the players who've gone down there, and Sam Pittman said, you think we're not rivals with them? They beat the hell out of us last year. He said, I don't need to motivate these guys. They understand how important this game is. So I think Arkansas goes into this game really, really wanting to win. Here's the problem. Missouri lost Brady Cook for a while, but he's back, and he's good. I watched the replay of that game, that Mississippi State game, twice. Mississippi State started that game off like a house on fire because this was their last chance to make a splash. They're at home. Missouri had just gotten beat. Brady Cook's coming back from injury. I mean, they stuffed him. Well, first of all, they came right down the field, had a guy drop a pass at the 5-yard line. They were going to score. They had to kick a field goal. But then they stuffed Brady Cook, almost sacked him for a safety. He got out to about the half-yard line. They got the kickoff, came back at the 35 and ran it all the way almost down to the red zone. Whoop, penalty flag. Now you're backed up, and then on the next play, the quarterback fumbles, and they scoop and score. And then it was just like you deflated a basketball. Mississippi State was done after that. They were playing on emotion, and the thing popped on them, and then here came Missouri. So Missouri's back rolling again. You know, they're off. They've recovered from that loss, that disappointing loss to South Carolina, and they're going to be tough. They are. And the worst thing about this, I think, from an Arkansas standpoint, is they force turnovers, and you cannot give them the ball. They will beat you badly like they did last year. So what's going to happen? I think they'll play well. I don't know if they can win. I just don't know.
Okay. I mean, that's at least a little bit encouraging there from you, Mike Irwin.
Don't expect me to get on here and say those guys are really beatable because they're still very good. They're not going to win the same number of games that they did last year. Their goal was to make the playoffs. They're not going to do that. But they'll still be in a decent bowl game. And as much as a lot of people, including me, have issues with Drinkwitz, Dinky-Witz, whatever we call him, Sam Pittman really sung his praises today. He said that guy can coach. He said he can call plays. He said you don't want to be on the other team and need to get the ball back late in the game when they have the ball because they will burn the clock out. They will run it out, and you can't stop them.
He was very classy, but that's what Sam Pittman is. I mean, no one is arguing that Sam Pittman is not a classy head coach, and so I thought that was really, really telling there what he was saying about Drinkwitz and the Missouri team in general. I just think a lot of people don't like him as a head coach, not Sam Pittman, Drinkwitz as a head coach, because some of the things he's done, the antics he's done this season.
I don't know what happened there at the end of the Mississippi State game, but he was doing that thing where he was trying to delay and not score another because they were already up.
Right, and then you saw what came out with the lip readers, right? With we're not going to say exactly what he said on the show,
but he said, "Hey, if you don't blah 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 blah,
if you don't shut up, I'll
score on you.
I'll score on you." Exactly.
I don't know what happened out there, but he said it on television and. Maybe he thought nobody could see it, but everyone could see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a lip reader, but the lip readers had a field day over that one because they were like, yeah, it's very clear kind of what he's saying here.
Yeah.
So,
but he can be whatever he is. He still can coach.
No, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think that adds to the fire. And then also what adds to the fire in this whole thing is that Arkansas has not won a game in Columbia.
Ever.
Ever.
And Sam Pittman said, hey, it's on Saturday. He said, I don't know why that would make a difference, but maybe it will.
Hey, sometimes curses, can be weird, funny things. I know I'm not very superstitious, but, people who are might say that, hey, moving the game might actually help their chances. We're going to go a little bit more into what some of the fans were saying on Saturday, though, and Wayne Keith says, change QB. Come on, Hogs. But then Wayne Keith later says, okay, don't. Go Hogs.
Well, clearly he did that during the game, and I love it because why? Because He will. He came back and corrected himself.
That's great.
That's an honest comment from somebody watching a game and getting mad and then realizing, oops, no, never mind, I changed my mind. So that's great. Those are the kind of fans I really like and respect because we all do that. I did that when I was a kid growing up. I'd be mad at the team I was supporting, Texas Tech, when I was a kid. Be mad at them, then I wasn't mad at them anymore.
Yeah.
Because you can be wrong inside a game. Quarterback stinks. Get rid of the quarterback. We need to get a new running back or whatever. And then all of a sudden the guy scores a touchdown. You're like, oh, never mind.
Well, and to all the Taylor Green haters out there, I'm just going to pull up the stats really quickly because I just wanted to, have some actual numbers to back this up with. But everyone, the big thing about Taylor Green, we know he's inconsistent. We know that. We've said that multiple times on the show. Nobody is arguing with you on that fact. And we know he's great with his legs. But a lot of people critique his passing. And so I just pulled up the stats. I just wanted to see. Right now, in the SEC, they only give you the top 10. Right. So he's in the middle of the top 10 there at number 5. And so I know that sometimes stats can be skewed because he's above Quinn Ewers, but Quinn Ewers has only played 9 games versus his 11. But he's 5th right now in the SEC quarterbacks because his average yards per game through the air, 234.9 is what that is. And then he currently has 2,584 yards on the season.
And consider that he's doing that with a pass rush on almost every play.
Right.
Nobody gets blitzed the way he does.
Right. So pass protection. But this is where I think the critique comes, is that he has 13 touchdowns, right?
And all those interceptions.
Versus to 9 interceptions.
And so it's the touchdown to interception ratio, which that's not good.
It
but
isn't,
again,
yeah.
Is he not close to being good? In other words, is he a bad quarterback? Give me a break.
Yeah, so we just gave you the stats there. You're welcome. I'm going to put them up on the screen for everybody when I was reading those, so you can fact check me there. That is the SEC football stats as they currently stand right now with quarterbacks in the SEC. So I think for people who want a knee-jerk reaction on he's not it, we understand there are things he needs to get better on. But I saw your post this weekend saying he's not even close to being good. That feels like a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, it's typical internet exaggeration for effect. I don't think the guy even believed that.
Yeah.
But that's what I was trying to point out. If you at least be accurate. You can think somebody's got an issue and they're not as good as everyone else thinks they are, but come on, don't overreact. Don't exaggerate for effect.
Absolutely. Tim Tino wants to know, what exactly is Arkansas brand football? I've heard it over and over in the player interviews. To me, being excited at the beginning of the season, only to be stoked that track is doing well, so we have some success by the end of the season.
Yeah, I think he's confusing, what his idea of Arkansas brand of football is with what those coaches are saying to the players. They're saying the standard stuff to them. Come on, guys, let's play from the snap to the end of the whistle. Don't let up before you hear the whistle. Okay? If there's a bad play, if we have a fumble, if we screw up, if somebody scores a touchdown, wipe that out of your mind and go start all over again. Play like that Razorback on your helmet means something. That's Arkansas brand football to a player. Now, if you're a fan and you're disgruntled and you're mad, going 6-6 and making a bowl game, or getting 6 wins and making a bowl game, is not Arkansas brand of football to you. Arkansas brand of football would be something that happened back when Petrino was here as head coach, or back when Ken Hatfield was here, or Lou Holtz, or Frank Broyles, something from the days when they were successful. You'd say that's Arkansas type football. But to be honest with you, Arkansas type football over the last X number of years has probably been not very good. That's the fans' view of it. But this is a totally different thing where coaches are telling players certain things. This is our brand. This is what we expect you to do.
Yeah, I think his point on that is that they keep saying it over and over again, and there is something to be said about coach speak, right? This is kind of like coach speak translating into players regurgitating that coach speak in press conferences, and we all know that to be true, right? We get into, there was a time where It was like there was certain phrases that the players would always use. What, iron sharpening iron? They would always say that. I feel like KJ Jefferson would say that, every single press
week.
conference. And so that technically, right, that phrase, iron sharpening iron, and those phrases, they're hearing them from the coaching staff. They're regurgitating them in the press conferences because it's a way to just make sure that you're not saying anything that you shouldn't be saying, too.
But
right?
again, I do think they live in a different world than you, the fans.
Sure.
And you need to understand that. You're not the only factor here. You are a factor, and you pay for it. If you go to the games. I'm not saying you don't have a right to opinions or anything like that. But understand that your view of something and a player's view may be totally different.
Absolutely. Armand Abbey asks, do you agree that there's a different reaction by players going to a lower level bowl game and fans who think there are too many bowls and a lot of them aren't worth watching?
Yeah, there was a big discussion on the internet about there's too many bowl games, and these were Razorbacks. Too many games, get rid of them. We shouldn't go to a bowl game this year. Okay, I understand that. That's your view. You live in a different world. Here's what a player knows. You gave some money and showed up for a game, or maybe you didn't even go. Maybe you just sit at home watching TV. That player has given a year of his life to that team. It started in the off season. There's nothing worse than the winter conditioning program. You've got no games, no fun. You're in that indoor workout area, and you're running your tail off, and you're lifting weights, which lifting weights is not an easy thing to do. It'll exhaust you, believe me, the way they do it. So you do all that for about 2 months. Then you get to spring football, and what is that? Well, you finally get to be on the field and do some competition things, but it's against your own team. It's not the same thing. Then you go back into the summer, and it's more weightlifting and running and a few sessions with the coaches, but not competition. Then preseason, August camp, you're back competing against yourselves, but it's still drudgery, and it's hot, and you're exhausted out there, and you're wearing down. And then the season starts, and you start playing games, and this is why you did all that other stuff, so you can do this. And then maybe it doesn't go as well as the fans wanted it to. You didn't either. But a fan can just sit back and go, so what? It stinks. Don't go to a bowl game. These players did all that to play games, and if they can play one more game, and it can be the ding-dong bowl, it's still something they want to do because they have more invested in it than you do. And that's why it's important to them, and at least understand their thinking on that. Taylor Green's coming off the field. What's he doing? Just the bowling ball
yeah,
thing.
he's bowling ball.
And then they went in there and did Larry the bowling ball. I saw some negative reaction to that. There were people who said they shouldn't be celebrating that. They shouldn't be that happy. What are you talking about? You don't have any right to tell them what they should do. You didn't go through what they went through to get to where they are. You're not the one. You don't have people talking about how bad you are. What if we all rounded up and ganged up on a group of fans and talked about what stinky fans they were and just tried to browbeat them all year long? We should fire you. You should be fired as a fan. You stink. You don't have that. They do. They've got people piling on themselves, piling on them all season long. They get to the end, they finally do something, and they're happy about it, and you want to tell them they shouldn't be in there celebrating? Give me a break.
But there is, to look at the other side of the argument here, right? I do understand where certain people are coming from, where the bowl games have changed significantly now in 2024 than they were years ago, especially now with the expanded playoffs and with opt-outs over the previous years.
No question.
So they have changed, because I was even talking to DJ about this the other day, and Alyssa, they remember the days where, it was a whole celebration for a whole week around the bowl game. Is that you would go, there would be activities, everything. It would be a whole celebration for a week. Now it's only like you play the game. It's just a day.
Depends
that's
on what
really
it is, but if it's a lower tier game. But
if it's a lower tier bowl, that's what I'm saying. But my point is, I get where some fans are frustrated, because I get frustrated a little bit.
But educate yourself. Sam Pittman said something today I guarantee you the average fan didn't even know about, never crossed their mind. Here's what he said. When we didn't go to a bowl game last year, you know what happened? All of our players went home. Instead of being here working out, they went home. And guess what? A bunch of them never came back.
Yeah.
He said, you want to know why I'm excited about a bowl game? Now I've got them here. the ones that we want back, we've got their attention. We can start talking to them about money. And then he also went into this whole thing about having more NIL money, which I mentioned about a month ago.
Yeah.
He said, we got a lot more. We can compete now.
He was pretty candid about it,
And he talked
too.
about the ability to keep some of these guys that they want to keep. There's all this talk about the offensive line. Well, there's some on there that just need an extra year. They came in from the outside. They have to adjust to the SEC. Well, we got the money to keep them. We got the money to bring in some new guys. You don't go to a bowl game, those guys, they can go home and somebody can offer them money. Pooh Paul, he's gone.
Yeah.
So, again, if they went to a bowl game last year, I think Pooh Paul would have played in that thing. He's competitive, and I don't think he would have left. So that's part of what we're talking about here. You may not think they should go to a bowl game, but you don't know all the factors that are involved.
That's true, and it's also something to be said about that extra practice time, extra time
Oh.
together to develop the younger players. I love seeing if there is opt-outs, right? If the opt-outs, like, nobody likes it, nobody likes to watch it, but it is kind of exciting to see some of those younger players step up. One of them being, what was it, 2 years ago, and Marion Harris,
Yeah.
right? Stepped up for them in the bowl game
He played
against
in
Kansas.
that bowl game, and that's where he got. They first looked at him and went, "Wow."
Exactly. So it is an opportunity for some of those younger players to get an opportunity, really. Hog fan in J-Town says, I like that name. Another game with O-line struggles. Maybe we need a new O-line coach. I know there's not going to be a change until the end of the season, but I think we need a change in coaching or better players up front.
I would opt for better players up front because you're not
Yeah.
going to see a new offensive line coach. He's in his first year anyway. Pittman likes him. They all do. I don't think any of them feel like that's the issue. Again, they had a lot of new guys. I think if a lot of those guys come back, they'll be better next year. I think, again, they're going to try to bring in even better guys in the portal this coming year because Sam Pittman said, we lost some guys because they're another school like Missouri or Ole Miss or whatever offering $200,000 more than we can.
Yeah.
He said, he looked out there and he said, any one of you guys, if somebody offered to pay you $200,000 more, would you leave your job? Of course you would.
Yeah, I would.
So,
The other thing, too, and I've talked to Otis about this multiple times, when you look at the portal, right, who are some of the hottest guys in the portal to look at? It's not the
They're
quarterbacks. It's
O-linemen.
not the running back. Yeah, it's the O-line.
you've got to be able to buy them.
You've got to be able to give them money.
And this is the last year that's going to happen, by the way. I've talked about this. From now on, the NIL thing probably won't make a difference. I think the whole portal thing is going to be changed a lot.
Yeah.
So this is your last shot at really throwing some money out there and getting some guys in to be better next year. And then everything changes next year when you have, as Sam Pittman said, it all starts to equalize. And I mean, people were saying to me, did you notice how he was so different in that press conference? Jacob said that.
Yeah.
And I said, there's a reason. Number one, he knows what's coming now. And he survived that. He's going to have these guys on campus in a bowl game, so they're not going to take off
No.
when the last game is played, the Missouri game. He's going to be back. He's going to have NIL money. Well, the NIL will be reduced. He'll have plenty of NIL, but it won't have the impact all over college football that it has right now. And then it will become more about what can your school do to pay these guys. And as long as you can meet the minimum, because there's a cap, as long as you can meet that cap, everybody's the same. And I think they're in pretty good shape to meet the cap.
It sounds like with the way Sam Pittman was talking, and Jacob made this point, this was the first time he said to me, he was like, I don't think he's been this candid about all of this.
It's been hanging over him.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's talked a lot about it because it would be considered an excuse, but it's been there. Yeah. He's been dealing with that. And so, again, you've got all these people talking about he's a dummy, he's not a good head coach, maybe he's a good line coach, but he can't manage this, he's that. They don't even know what was going on behind the scenes.
And I've said this to multiple fans who have asked me, why does Hunter Yurchek feel okay with bringing him back for another season? Why does this administration feel okay bringing him back another season? I gave them the point that you're just making right there. They know the situation he's been dealing with. They know the money in the NIL situation. And I'll be honest with you, everything that we've heard is that it wasn't good. And so they understand that situation was there. Now they are trying to actively fix that situation. So they're going to give him a shot. Hey, we've put you in a better position now. Can you go out there and win ball games? If you can't, then you're obviously on the hot seat. You're on the hot seat once again, and you're most likely getting fired. but we're going to give you the resources you need to do your job. If you cannot get it done, then we're going to have a conversation,
Exactly.
right? So that's to everyone asking there. Razor Alex 88 asked, what is up with the special teams? Getting pants with the face. I love it.
Is that a correct spelling of pants? I've
maybe
never seen that
pants,
word.
I'm assuming.
Is that a word, pants?
Yeah, again, pants, but I don't know. You're asking me about spelling here, and
It's
I'm
funny,
like,
I like
that's
it.
great. Getting pants for the fake field goal, fake punt, and another player running into Satania on a punt return, causing him to lose the football. Glad for the win, but what on earth is Scott Fountain getting paid for? And this has been a critique for a while.
Okay.
So I do
that
understand
one thing,
this.
Pittman addressed it, said it's got to be corrected, and it should be. And he went into an explanation about why it was happening. But here's the thing. You could not pay, if I were in coaching, you couldn't pay me to be a special teams coach. If I had a job and I was an O-line coach and somebody said, we'll make you a coordinator. Oh, I want to be a coordinator, a special team. No, I don't want that.
You're just absolutely
Here's
not.
why. A team can rock along for 5 games and nothing bad happens in special teams and nobody says jack. They don't go, whoa, great special teams. Nobody says anything. Then all of a sudden you can have a few problems pop up and it's like, fire that guy, he's a moron. Here's what I would point out.
There have been some problems there. Let's be
He's
honest.
having problems, but I promise you, if you went to any SEC school and looked at their special teams, they would have problems from time to time. Now, let's talk about Gus Malzahn's first year at Auburn. Remember that? Okay. This is Nick Saban. They're playing for the SEC championship game. And what happens? End of regulation, Saban's going to try a field goal that could win it, and it's too long, and it hits, and it doesn't go through. And guess what? Alabama special teams guys just sort of zone out. That kick unit just kind of goes, oh, it's a missed field goal. What did Auburn do? They all lined up, started blocking, the guy runs it back, and you won the game. There was a huge special team screw-up, and Nick Saban is the head coach. This isn't Arkansas. It's Alabama. Then Brian Kelly, his first year at LSU, same thing. They're playing Georgia. This was early in the game, but they try a field goal. It gets partially blocked, and it's like all those LSU bozos just start going do, start walking off, and the guy crouches down, looks around. All of a sudden, he's got a wall, goes right through the middle, and they're already headed for the sidelines. It happens. It happens. Now, why does it happen? Let me explain something, and people probably know this, but who is on special teams? It's not your starters, not your offensive and defensive starters, because you can't afford that. You don't want them tired all the time. They got to rest. So who are you putting out there? You're putting in guys, freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores, people that aren't making the too deep, but you're out there teaching them how to do special teams, and you expect them to be really, really good. Whereas with your offense and your defense, you got proven guys out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you want to be a special teams coach and have to deal with that? Come on. I'm not saying he's the greatest special teams coach out there, but I'm not saying he's a big idiot either, because they've had some good. What about the fake field goal that Arkansas tried against Alabama that worked?
True.
You know, it goes both ways.
It does. Yeah, it does. I think the other thing, because you go into more than that, right? They lost Evan Noel, right? He flipped his commitment from Arkansas to Florida. Right. That was a huge get for Scott Fountain if he had actually followed through and came to Arkansas. My question is just, okay, you lost this guy. And then the kicking situation this year, I've been told multiple different reasons of why, you know, they had to go this guy, and we thought Cam Little might stick around for another year. And it's just like, okay, it's not just one game, I feel like, as well. So that's, to me, it's like the question should be asked. The question should be there.
What I'm saying to you is, name me anybody that talked about how good special teams were when you had a 4 or 5 game stretch where you didn't have a problem.
Sure. Yeah.
They don't mention it.
Yeah.
You only get mentioned when you screw up. Think about that if you had to do that in your daily life. Everything, you went around doing your job every day, and then one day out of 10, so you screw up and they just come down on you like you're an idiot.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that is kind of what happens, you know, especially in TV, especially when we have a mistake here. People remember the mistakes over all the shows that we don't have mistakes in, right?
I wouldn't want to be a special teams coach.
Not me either, Mike. We can agree on that.
It's an awful job.
I wouldn't want to be a special teams coach either. Terry Weatherford says, I guess the little whiny Cash from Ole Miss can sit down and shut up.
Okay, who's he talking about here? Is he talking about Kiffin or is he talking about Jackson Dart? I guess Kiffin.
I think it's because Ole Miss has the whole thing is the Ole Miss has money, right?
Yeah.
And Ole Miss paid a lot of money to get their
$20
players.
million for this transfer portal class. And they're going to what? The Music City Bowl? I don't think they'll get $20 million for playing in the Music City Bowl.
I don't think so either. I do think it's very funny because I had some Ole Miss fans that go, we have a 4% chance of making the playoffs still by ESPN. I said, oh yeah, 4% chance.
Here's the problem with their chances. The only thing they can do from here on out is beat Mississippi State. What's that going to do?
That's why ESPN gave them a 4% chance.
Yeah.
It was an 89% chance if they won against Florida, and it was a 4% chance if they lost. So I guess if you want to say the 4% chances, you want to.
Well, I was kind of thinking maybe he's talking about Jackson Dart because here's what we went back and remember when we talked about at the end of that Ole Miss game where they scored their 6th touchdown and he started off the field and then he came back and held up 6 fingers and started flashing it to the Arkansas player.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
And I said he's going to get his for that. He just will.
My gosh.
That's what I said.
Mike, I know you did, but that's so funny.
He did get his. Why did they lose that game? He lost it. Didn't he throw a pick and then turn around and throw another one?
He threw 3 picks in the last 2 minutes. I want to say it was like
he
3
lost
picks
that game
in quick succession.
I'm telling you.
Oh
when you do that, when you act like that, it will come back on you sooner. That's karma. That's what happens. Karma bites you. I mean, he deserved it. Joe Ferguson, one of my favorite ex-Razorbacks, but he was a terrific quarterbacks coach at Arkansas. And I was talking to him about this one day, and he said, a quarterback has to be held to a different standard than any other player on the team because whatever a quarterback does, he's sending a message, every guy on this team can be what I am. So when Jackson Dart did that, he was saying, hey, I'm being a big idiot. I'm making fun of the other team because we're blowing them out. You all can do that too. Karma, you're not going.
Yeah, I think it's
You were going to the playoffs. What has Ole Miss been doing ever since last December when they started buying these guys out?
We're going to win the national title.
We're going to the playoffs, and we're going to win the SEC.
Oh, and they said they were going to win a natty. There was a lot of people that were saying Ole Miss is poised to win the natty.
You're not.
Yeah.
And you know why I think they're not? It's not because they're not talented enough. They have a really good defense. They've got a great quarterback. They're arrogant. They don't know how to be humble when they win. Yeah, it bites you when you do that.
You don't like the whole dunking with the goal and everything. Well, I know. I saw what Florida did. They took that goal and they started dunking on it.
They put the Ole Miss logo on it, and they were taking turns dunking.
It was great.
Turnabout is a fair play, man.
Hey, it's karma.
What goes around comes around.
What goes around comes around. You're making me laugh today, Mike. The Hawkins says, I've heard you say the Aggies are always going to Aggie out after watching them lose to Auburn and the way they lost. I get what you mean.
Yeah, and because it's been happening so long, I keep talking about all the way back to when I was a kid. Every year they were going to win it all. We're going to win a conference championship. We're going to win a national. This is our year. We've got the right coach now. And it keeps repeating over and over and over again. So if you're a Razorback fan and you think you're frustrated by this stuff, imagine being an Aggie where you've got all the resources, all the money, and you can do just about anything you want, including hiring Jimbo Fisher away, and it doesn't work out, so we'll pay him $80 million to go away, and then we'll just get another coach and pay him, and we'll have all this money. And it still doesn't work, although they're still not technically out of it.
Yeah.
Because all they have to do is beat Texas. And then I think even if they beat Texas, then they have to, well, no, they are in the championship game. They have to win the championship game.
Yeah, right, because
they got to beat Texas,
yes,
which gets them into the championship game. And then they have to win the championship game because if they lose it, they're not getting in with 4 losses. It won't happen.
Yeah, I don't think
so. It's still slim for them, but they have a better shot than Ole Miss.
Yeah, well, the next question goes into that. Eddie Lynn asked, do you think an SEC team with 3 losses still makes the playoffs? Some are saying that Ole Miss and A&M are still not out of it. People are even making a case for South Carolina to be in it. I mean, they're a 3-loss team as well right now. So.
I don't think so, But A&M could do it because of an automatic.
Right.
Because they win the conference championship game, so you get in because it's automatic.
Exactly.
If it's not automatic, I don't think you get in. Now there was a discussion today on the radio. I was on Phil Elson's show with Matt Jones, and we were talking about this. And I think all three of us agreed with this. Mm-hmm. Here's what SEC fans say, and I assume the conference office would make this point. We're so much better than the other conferences. We need 5 teams in.
Yeah.
Okay, you can say that all you want, but do you think you're immune simply because you loaded your conference up with so many teams that nobody can dominate? So you're going to have 5 teams with at least 2 losses, and you think they all should get in?
Yeah.
Or even a team with 3 losses that, well, our 3-loss team is better than that 1-loss team in the Big Ten. Well, you still lost 3 games or 4 or whatever you do. Here's where this argument is going to either be made or lost about getting in, how many teams you get in. It's how those teams that get in perform. If the committee takes a 3-loss SEC team or 2 of them, how do they do in the playoffs? Because that's how they're going to start judging this. And then there's the other thing that I've always talked about. When all these people years ago were saying we don't need an expanded playoff because there are only 4 good teams every year that anybody else they added couldn't get through there and win anyway. Well, it is tougher because of the way they're doing. I wish they would have eliminated the home field advantage. I wish they'd go to 16 and everybody has to play all the rounds. So that is an advantage. If you're the 9th seed or whatever and you have to go on the road, that's going to be tough to win that.
True.
But we know from the NCAA basketball tournament that the more teams you stick in there, the greater chance you have for an upset. And
Absolutely.
I still think we may get a national champion this year that people are going, no way. I would love it because I hate predictability. I hate this notion that it's got to be Ohio State or it's got to be Oregon or it's got to be Georgia or it's got to be some team. Why? You know, why can't you have a team why can't you have an Indiana do it? Why?
Yeah.
Because you don't respect them? To heck with you.
Well, I think as well, it's going to be really interesting because I think there's a point you haven't made here that I would like to make in favor of South Carolina. And last year, we know the committee took injuries into account. They said they took injuries into account. That's why FSU didn't make it, right? Oh, their quarterback is injured. We took that into account. Well, if you're taking injuries into account, let's take South Carolina, for example. Their quarterback was injured. You know, he didn't play in some of those games. Okay. And if you're taking injuries into account, why can't that be one that you take into account?
And maybe they do.
So that is another thing of this, of like, what are the actual like, I'd like to have somebody sit down and go, this is what we're going to look at, right? This is what, it's just the committee, I feel like they get in that room and they're going to be like, well, this and this and this and this.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do, how they handle some of these SEC teams with multiple losses.
Absolutely, because I will say this, Mike, you know, I love a good upset too. But if you watch that Indiana and Ohio State game, there was clearly a better team there, and the better team won. And so that was people's argument all along. But Indiana right now only has 1 loss. So, you know, do you kick them out completely because they have 1 loss and the SEC is a better conference? So you're going to put SEC teams in there for 3 losses? I would argue that more SEC teams in there is going to be a more exciting playoff just because of the talent of the SEC.
And here's what I say.
Okay.
Plead guilty.
All right.
I'm not an SEC guy. I cover a team in the SEC. From the minute Arkansas got in this league, what I started noticing, you go down deep into SEC territory, Birmingham and in those areas, I saw total arrogance. Fans that were, you know what those fans reminded me of? Longhorn fans. Always thinking they're better than everybody. We're better than you are. We've got better players. I'm just telling you, I don't give a flip what happens to any of these teams once they get in. If they win, they do. I cover Arkansas. I care about what happens to them. I like some of these teams better than others. I've always said I like Auburn. I like their fans. I don't like LSU. I think their fans are weird. Aggies are not bad people. They're just strange people.
Yeah.
I don't like Texas. Missouri, I don't like that whole thing up there. That's weird. But there are other teams that I'm okay with. Yeah. But really, I'm not going to get excited if one of those teams wins or if they don't win or whatever, because I'm fully capable of looking at Big Ten teams or Big 12 teams and going, hey, you know, I like you too. You're okay.
Right, and I'm not saying I'm a SEC homer or anything. I'm just saying that you look at this. how many SEC teams are bowl eligible now? There's only 3 that aren't, if I'm correct on that stat.
Okay.
Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Auburn has a chance to be bowl eligible. They have a chance. So let's say Auburn does beat Alabama and becomes bowl eligible. That's not, you know, what, I don't know the exact percentage, but that's 90%
you know what that
of the
speaks
conference.
to? The parity. The
True.
reason all those teams are bowl eligible is because some other teams at the top got beat.
Right, or maybe it's just the SEC being, you know, the SEC.
It wasn't that way until this year. Not like this. Not with the parity. With you combine the NIL money with the portal, and it's balanced everything out.
All right, it definitely has. I just think it's really interesting.
I'm gonna fall off this chair.
You're gonna sit in your chair, Mike. We can't have you falling off.
To start.
We can't have you falling off. Racing Hog is a solution for that. Oh, okay. Oh no, sorry. WV Hog fan wants to know. I skipped a question. With the expanded playoff, is there a need to play the conference championship game since the loser could face elimination from making the playoffs?
Well, I understand the argument here, but come on, they're not gonna give up the money they make because that money gets distributed to all the schools. So no conference school is going to say, hey, we'll give you an extra $6 million for what I don't know what it is, but each school is going to get a part of that money. Well, they're not going to say, yeah, don't play it. Even though your goal may be to get to the playoffs, and it becomes more important now that there's an expanded playoff, there's still a need to have a conference champion. There just is. Now, you could say, well, okay, whoever finishes with the best record, well, what happens if 3 teams finish with the same record? And we get into that stupid thing they do where they determine who gets in the championship game. You just need to play a championship game. It may be irrelevant the day after it's over, but the team that wins it can always say, we won a conference title.
But it's definitely not irrelevant even with the expanded playoff because that's the way Texas A&M has a path,
Exactly.
right? So we're not talking about it being irrelevant.
What he's suggesting is, what if A&M goes into this and then they lose and then they're out? Well, they're out anyway, probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But there could be a situation next year, the year after, where you take a risk, you go ahead and play the championship game, you get beaten, it knocks you out. But most years it's probably not.
But I don't think it is going to knock because if A&M goes and beats Georgia, right? If A&M beats, I understand, but if A&M beats Georgia, are we saying that Georgia's going to get knocked out? No.
No, he's talking about a team going in and playing and then losing, and then they because they played the game, they hurt themselves.
Exactly, but Georgia, they're going to go play the game, and I think if Georgia, and let's say if it is Texas A&M, if Georgia loses that game to Texas A&M, I don't think they're out of the playoffs.
Well, probably not. But the point is, I guess it could happen. Most years it's not going to happen, and there's not enough of a chance of that to get rid of the conference championship game. They're just not going to do it.
Yeah, Racing Hog has a solution, though. He says, let's be real, the conferences are not going to give up that revenue, which is what we said. So would it be feasible for the conferences to go to the committee and ask that the playoff teams be announced before these games?
The people that run the playoffs, it's not just the committee. It's an organization that runs the playoffs. No, if you went to them and said that, they'd be, you're trying to blackmail us.
Well, and I also just explained why it matters. Like this matters.
But what you would be doing is telling that committee, hey, we think the SEC should have insurance. You should give us insurance. We're going to go ahead and play this game, but you should promise us before it ever plays
that both teams are going to make it, or
both teams are going to get in automatically. They're not going to do that because their job is to put the best teams in there that are going to generate the most excitement, and the TV network people are going to look at that and go, "What? You made a guarantee to these yo-yos, and they lost the game, and you still get the nah."
Penhawk says the SEC seems to be devouring itself. Lower level teams have more talent with the portal, but that doesn't mean that top level teams have less depth.
But doesn't that mean? Yes, that's what.
But doesn't that mean? I'm sorry.
It's both. It's both. It works with both ways, and that's really what's happened. And we've talked about that over and over. It is an unintended consequence. We've talked about a lot of fans don't like NIL. They don't like the combination of NIL and portal. But what it sort of accidentally created is more parity, which some people think is good. Let me say this. It's over after this year. You're not going to have that. Why? Because everything is going to be different next year. You're going to players are primarily going to be paid by each school with a cap. So you're not going to have the ability to go in and say, well, yeah, Texas wanted this guy as a backup, but we offered him a starting job and more money, so we got him. Now it's going to go back to the way it was because of equalized offers. because the money's the same, and because you can't go take a player away from Texas because they've already spent money on these players, and you can get this guy. Instead of that, players are going to start going to school for the traditional reason. They have a better winning history. I want to go play for a national championship. I think I have a better chance if I'm at that school. They can get me to the NFL. They have a better chance. I've had a better chance to go to the NFL playing for this school. My parents like this school. I was a fan when I was a kid. I went on a visit and I liked this coach. I felt comfortable there. All of those were the traditional reasons why you went to a school. It's coming back.
Marty Bird's Proxy asks, what do you think about more uniformity in scheduling? Each power conference plays 2 of its non-conference games against 2 teams from another conference. A better sampling of how strong conferences are versus each other.
Well, that's going to happen, but not for that reason. It's going to happen because if the networks want to continue to, and what's basically going on here is with all this need to pay more, especially now with the revenue sharing, you got to generate money. Everything costs money, so these schools have to generate more money. Where do you get most of your money from now? Increasingly, it's from TV revenue. Well, what do the TV people say? They're not going to give you a bunch of money for a stinko game. So they don't want Alabama playing Alabama State. They don't want Tennessee playing Tennessee Western or whatever school. They don't want that. They want Tennessee to play Michigan. They want Alabama to play Ohio State. That's a big game. That's a game that will generate money. And that's where we're headed. So it's not a matter of playing better non-conference opponents from other Power 4 schools just to determine how good your conference is. They're doing it because the network people want it, and it is coming. And we're going to end up with a deal where you could lose 5 games and still be a really good team because of who you had to play.
Hot Atlanta Hog wants to know, what's your early assessment of the outlook for the Hogs basketball team? NCAA bound, Sweet 16, or a bubble team?
Well, that's really tough to say.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and we've talked about this, they have to solve some problems. John L. Davis has to start shooting. They need shooters.
He needs, if he's not 100%, he needs to get healthy. Because if it's this lingering wrist issue or whatever he's having, that's why we're probably not seeing him shooting at a high clip like he has been.
Whatever's causing this, if it doesn't correct itself, that's a big issue. And the other is Jonas Adu. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know how long he's going to continue to sit out. But they cannot, I think they're going to have a hard time finishing high enough in the SEC without him to make the end. I've watched most SEC teams right now. The way they're playing right now, they might end up 7th, 8th, somewhere in the league.
I mean, yeah.
There's a bunch of teams that are better than they are right now.
The SEC is stacked, and this is no news to anybody. Coach Cal and all the other coaches at SEC Media Days talked about how tough the league is, especially in recent years and especially this year.
Yeah, so if they can get those 2 problems solved, then I think they're an NCAA tournament team. Now, I don't know how far they'll go. We'll find out if all this Kentucky stuff, Cal can't win NCAA tournament games, if that's true. But they've got to get in first. And the way you get in is you got to finish high enough in your conference that you get picked. And that will boil down to however many teams get in.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think I can see this team. This team has enough talent on it. I do believe they will get to the NCAA tournament, but how many games do you win in it? You know, that's kind of the thing, is like how far do you go? The other problem right now with this team, it's so hard to, everyone always asks, oh, what do you think of them so far? And it's so hard to judge them because we haven't seen this team completely healthy.
That's true.
If we don't get to see this team completely healthy, I change everything of what I'm saying right now. I mean, you have to, the first thing is getting healthy, because one of the things we've seen them struggle against is zone defense. They struggle against it in the Baylor game. They struggled against it in that Little Rock game. And so Kenny Payne talked about it. Oh, well, how do you get better at playing against the zone defense? You practice it. What haven't we been able to do in practice is scrimmage, put them in situational basketball. So they're right now, and you made a great point about this, Mike, the other day on the Pig Trail Show. They are being thrown into these games, and these are like their practice. This is like
they're getting better through playing games.
Through playing games, and that's like their practice, so to speak, since they're not able to do 5-on-5 and scrimmage and practice. So again, I really hope this team gets healthy because I really want to be having a different outlook on how SEC play will be if they can be healthy. KY Hog says, from what I saw on TV, it looked like a much better crowd for the Arkansas Little Rock game than those other 3 home games. What was different about this game, Mike?
Well, it's pretty obvious. First of all, it's on a Friday instead of a weekday. So what happens on a Friday? Guess what? Nobody has to get up and go to work the next day. So that's one thing. Then it happened on the weekend of a football game, so people from outside Northwest Arkansas already have a reason to be here. So they come in the night before, go to a game, and then still go to the football game and go back home after that. And then the third thing is, because it's an 8 o'clock start, you don't have to run home from work, grab your wife, drive down to the arena and just eat a hot dog at the game or popcorn or whatever. Yeah. You can actually go out and have a meal on a Friday night, which is what you would normally do anyway, and still get to the game. So when you combined all of that, crowd was what, 13,000 instead of 8?
Yeah, something like that.
So that's good. Monday night, back in the, it's going to get cold tonight.
Oh yeah.
Supposedly it's going to be around freezing when that game is over.
Yeah.
So how many people are going to go, you know what, if we go to that game, we're going to be driving home and we're sitting in traffic in the car and then we freeze and walking out to the car and I don't think I'll go. So I don't know how many people are going to show up for this Monday night game, but I think it will be back to where we were at least.
I hope so. I think something else, and I know we have the graphic up, so hopefully, thank you guys for switching that back to us, but something else I think that affected it was all the huppabaloo on social media about the attendance. Coach Cal saying, look, if we can get people here, I think it kind of ticks some fans off as well, especially when you talk about how Kentucky fans came out and showed them, look at our attendance numbers and look at this. And you had a Barstool Sports, one of their guys wrote an article about it. How pathetic is this that Coach Cal is asking for people to show up to his games? I think it lit a fire under Arkansas fans a little bit.
If you're right, then the Monday night game will be better.
I hope it is better. I really do.
If we're back to 8,000 or 7 or 6, oh, it's cold. I'm not going. I've never heard of this team. What is this, Delaware Ding Dong?
It's Maryland Eastern Shore, but that's, but besides the point, guys. That's besides the point who they're facing. Go and support the team. I mean, if you can't use your tickets, give them to somebody else. There are people I've seen on social media that want to go to this game, that want to go, that want to enjoy it.
I thought it was North Delaware State.
No, it's not.
See,
but
anytime you have the name of a state, but then you put something weird in it.
Like Eastern Shore.
Maryland, Eastern Shore. That's like Texas A&M, East Texas.
Like, you're like, what? What's going on? I completely agree with you there, Mike, but hopefully we see much better attendance numbers for the Monday night game. This will be the telling factor if I'm correct in what I think is that people talking about this got Arkansas fans a little mad.
We'll see.
Mad. So,
hope you're right.
And I hope so as well, because I know the university put out they were selling tickets, but the whole big thing was that they were selling tickets for a game against, Little Rock and Maryland Eastern Shore for like $40, and people were going, on StubHub, it's $2 to go to this game, You're now selling these tickets for $40. Can y'all lower the prices a little bit? So hopefully they get all that sorted out and we have a nice crowd here on this Monday night game.
Maybe you could pay them to go.
Pay the fans to go?
Yeah.
I think that's
by attendance.
It's not very lucrative, I guess. But
not with what the money they need to generate.
Yeah, we talk about the revenue sharing that's coming out. I think, no. We don't need to do that. But anyways, that's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.